I told you that God visited me yesterday in a dream, in a vision, and gave me 3 important things to tell you, you might rightly say, I'm not quite sure that's true. How do I know that God gave you 3 things to tell me? Well, I would say, look, I've had an experience. It's a vision. This vision was as real for me as any vision I've ever experienced. You need to trust me. This really happened. This really was my vision. I don't know, Jim. I'm not quite sure I could trust you for this. Okay, that's one way of making the case. What if I told it to you this way? What if I said, God came to me yesterday in the form of a human and gave me 3 things to tell you. And he had lunch with me in my backyard with 3 of my friends. Not only that, he looked over at my dry grass in Southern California and he said, I can help you build an irrigation ditch for this. And we laid pipe in the irrigation ditch in my backyard. Then he looked at my tree and he said, I can help you with a tree house for your kids. And he built this amazing tree house all in a couple of hours. It was incredible. Now, that kind of claim, the second kind of claim, is very different than the first kind of claim. The first kind of claim is based on a private vision. You could never test. You could never verify it or falsify it. You're just kind of stuck with it. But the second kind of claim, that's actually something you could test because it's grounded in an activity, in an event that took place yesterday in my backyard. You could talk to my friends. You could examine that irrigation ditch. You could look at that tree and see how cool that treehouse is. In other words, you could actually attempt to falsify it or verify it. I mention this because the claims of Christianity are in the second category, not the first. We have a claim that's grounded on an event that happened in history called the resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's very different than other theistic claims, like Buddhistic claims, for example. You can test our kind of claim because it's grounded in history. And that's what we ought to be doing. We ought to be seeing this examination of evidence as an act of worship. Here's what I mean by that. It's not unusual for us to see worship as simply the songs we sing on church on Sunday, or it's the prayers we offer God, or it's our effort to serve in our local community, or to do a short-term or a long-term missions trip. But there's another way to worship God that is commanded in Scripture. We're to worship God with all of our heart, our soul, all of our mind. So the question becomes, well, how is it we can worship God with our mind? The time you're taking right now to consider the things of God is in fact an act of worship, because you could be spending this time doing any number of other things. And that would also be a form of worship toward those other things. Instead, when we focus on why Christianity is true, we now are worshiping God with our mind. And that's what we do when we develop a forensic faith.